Hi, I'm Alan Bligh. I'm one of the writers at Forge World. I've been doing that for a couple of years now. Other than that, I also write and have written for things like the Warhammer 40,000 role-playing games, Dark Heresy, Rogue Trader, Death Watch, and some other things in the games industry, and some horror fiction. So, that's me.
Hi, I'm Simon Egan. I'm the sculptor for Forge World. I've been here for about 12 to 13 years. I started on the large-scale figures, and over the years we now do the 28mm figures, and I did Lufthuren for the Badab War, and also the Honor Guard and Severinlof. Thank you, Al. Filling the spaces.
What I'm here for.
Okay, we're here today to talk about the Imperial Armour 9, the first part of the Badab War, long-awaited Badab War supplement. And we've got a question from Brian in London who wants to know, the Badab War is a long-standing element of the Warhammer 40,000 background, and is obviously fondly remembered by a lot of veteran gamers. What was your initial approach like dealing with something everyone remembers fondly, and how easy is it to bring together all the different references and scraps of information?
Well, actually, it was, for a start, loads and loads of fun to do, because it's something that I, as a hobbyist, have been interested in to do with Warhammer 40,000 since I was a kid. I got the initial White Dwarfs back in the day with the exciting double parade spread of Space Marines in it, and it's something on and off that I've had some contact with all the way since. It's been lots and lots of fun to do, like I say. In terms of research, it was actually a bit sticky. It did require a fair amount of effort, as bits and pieces about it have been seeded over 20-30 years of different stuff that Games Workshop's done, and it was a question of sort of sorting out what was still viable, still accurate, still interesting, and seeing what extra levels of detail and dark mysteries and terrible bloodshed I could inflict upon the universe during the course of it.
We've got a question from Ian in Glasgow, who wants to know about the design of Space Marine characters and weapons and technology. It says they all have quite a set shape and design, and it's not really varied much for quite a while. Does that sort of change how you would go about sculpting for a product like Badab War? Does it mean you approach the project any different way to another race or army?
No, not really. I think with Badab War, Alan had a particular idea of how he wanted it to be, and so he came to me with a printout of ideas that he'd sourced from the internet, and we worked on that together. We had good old chats, and sort of you put the skin on the bones, didn't you, really?
Yeah, I mean, what I generally do when in coming up with the initial information for these projects and deciding what I'm going to write is I visualise a lot of stuff. I'm a very sort of visual writer, so I like to imagine people and events that I then write about. It helps me. And of course then what I've got to do is get those ideas off in some sort of cogent way, so that the likes of poor Sam has to listen to me ramble about them.
Which is great for me, because as a starting point, that's brilliant for a designer and a sculptor, when the writer has got a very strong opinion of what he wants and how he's visualised it. So then I can then go away, we can have good chats, I can then go away, do some drawings, and then start on the sculpting, which worked very well for this particular figure.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great advantages with this one, and it's, to be honest, from my perspective as a Forge World writer, is exactly what I want to happen. Is I have a rough idea, I decide kind of what it is, we talk to other people in Forge World, sort of canvas opinion. Yeah. It's at the start of Badab as well, we had a big meeting with lots of people in a room, and I got to explain what I thought was going on, and shout things like Babylon and Mesopotamia, you know, with the eagles and the lions, and people look at me funny.
Yeah, very funny.
and then I drag pictures off the internet and go, no, like this, and that ends up in the hands of Sam,
yeah,
who then works his genius and turns out what I think is a fantastic miniature that is infinitely better than I imagined. So that's kind of, if you like, the perfect thing we're after with Forge World is we have a good idea for a model, and then the model is better than the idea. I mean, we do also make, you know, good models, and then we clad ideas on them, but and it works both ways. But
it did work very well for this particular project, and with the ideas that Al gave to me, I could then embellish, and going back to that previous question about how armour has changed, I could then embellish the Terminator armour with the ideas that we had, and that just made him an extra special character, really.
Okay, we have a question from Jim in Greensboro, North Carolina, who points out that Imperial Armour 9 and 10 slightly different from previous Forge World books in that they've taken an existing element of the 40k background and expanded it rather than creating entirely new conflict. Are there any other stories you'd like to base books around, and if so, what would they be?
Well, to sort of answer the first bit, which is it a bit different? Yes, it is, because it really is the first one we've sort of delved into the history, which is been great fun to do, as I think I mentioned earlier. And it's different because it gives us a small creative framework to base what we do on, and then add a lot more detail. One of the things I think Forge was really good for, especially in terms of writing and doing variants and models, is simply to give you a somewhat narrow but very deep slice of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Whereas a codex has to be quite general and make quite a sort of sweeping breadth of a subject, such as the Space Marines. We can be much more specific and say these very specific Space Marines are like this in this time and this place, and the certain dark events that may happen to them, or glorious campaigns, and we can give people a lot more nuance and detail and stuff. Is there more of that I'd like to do? Yes, of course there is. There's loads of cool stuff in the Warhammer 40,000 background I'd love to expand upon, as well as making up new stuff. For me personally, and this is going to sound a bit geeky, but hopefully the audience, just a bit, but hopefully the audience will forgive me. Stuff like the Nova Terror Interregnum, the Age of Apostasy, I'd love to do stuff with, and even some very minor stuff like the Alted campaign and the Crusade rather, and stuff to do with what the Mechanicus get up to and that sort of thing. I'd love to have a look at historically and sort of really increase the kind of the level of detail and background on those, and hopefully people will find that also cool and exciting to do. So do write in and tell us that we should do that. That's always something good to do.
Okay, and similarly, Patrick from Stoke-on-Trent says, do you prefer writing these sort of established events, or do you feel at all limited, like creatively, by what you can put in?
Well, I don't think so. Obviously, in a very sort of general sense, you're limited if you're dealing with a historical event that has known players. Obviously, that's then the sides, if you like, in it that you embrace. But all that really does is give you a framework to work off, which is what you end up giving yourself anyway, if you're sensible, when you're doing creative projects from the start. You've got to make, right at the beginning, certain basic choices, answer basic questions of the who, the why, the where, and the what. And when taking a historical event inside the fictional universe of Warhammer 40,000, you take that as your initial framework, rather than sort of inventing one yourself. One of the things I very much wanted to do when treating with the Badab War was to keep if you like, the outermost layer of detail just what people expected. So the same people were involved, the Astral Claws, Huron, obviously the Red Scorpions, lots of different chapters. And it happened in the Maelstrom Zone, all as everybody knows that's been knocking around with Warhammer 40,000, with a fairly deep knowledge. But inside that, add layers of detail, and also mystery and darkness and extreme bloodshed.
But you're very good at adding darkness and mystery to it.
Yeah. Who'd have thought it? So the closer you get into the story, the more secrets may be revealed, or more things that may surprise the reader, even though they may already know the general story because they know, if you like, the historical event. The details may elude them, and it also allows me to play with certain great things about Warhammer 40,000 anyway, which is the sense of mystery and often slightly irrational nature of it, and also the idea that history itself may be a lie, and the Imperium doesn't even know the truth of what goes on inside its borders, or certainly has a tendency to mythologise stuff. So I got to go, well, actually, is it the Badab War you thought it was, or did stranger and darker things take place than you knew? So that's been great fun to write.